What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Thomas, bringing you another edition of the Thomas Take. And yes, I'm going to recap one of my favorite shows. I've liked to kind of deviate from the usual, Thomas Take opinion and kind of talk about shows, recap shows. I did a recap of HBO's 24/7 in the lead-up to the Canelo Alvarez Triple G Gennady Golovkin fight, and I've done a recap of HBO's Hard Knocks. One of my favorite shows that's out there, that's on NFL Network, is A Football Life. They obviously have a wide variety of shows on that channel that I really like, that are very entertaining. But at heart, I am a football historian. I like the history of football. I love the game. I love how the game came to be known as what it is today, between the NFL and the AFL, and then merging together and forming the Shield as we know it today. So, just wrapped up watching an episode of A Football Life, which that's the name of the show, A Football Life. If you have not watched it, I highly, highly recommend that you watch it, because it is a great show. It's a show that teaches people about the game. It teaches people about the game's most influential figures, and I can't find one more influential, a guy that kind of contributed to each and every era of the game like John Madden did. And John Madden was the subject matter in tonight's episode, and I really enjoyed watching it. Basically, for those of you that don't know, obviously, where Madden, where the game, we know about the game, but to watch that, to know that, he contributed to the game in so many ways. 16 Emmy award-winning years that he won Emmys for his broadcasting career, 30 years as a broadcaster on Fox and CBS and NBC, just a real pioneer of football. Obviously, the fastest coach to 100 wins while he was the coach of the Oakland Raiders. There are few coaches, I think, that have influenced the game as much as John Madden has. And really, those guys, in my opinion, if I were to go back and kind of look at the history books of the game, you'd obviously have Vince Lombardi, you'd obviously have Tom Landry, you'd obviously have Bill Walsh, Chuck Noll, and John Madden. I think those are the guys that really paved the way. Lamar Hunt as well. There are a lot of guys that have paved the way for the coaches that followed. The Bill Parcells of the world, the Bill Belichicks of the world, the Bill Cowhers, the John Grudens, the Tony Dungys of this era. And it's really remarkable to see how one guy can transcend and transform football into what it is today on so many levels. My biggest takeaway from the episode was just how many lives John Madden has brought football into so many lives. And that, I don't think that should be underestimated. I honestly think it's something that should be talked about much more, because for someone my age, 25 years old, that grew up watching the game, grew up following the game, grew up playing the game, grew up all around football and baseball and sports, John Madden was a huge reason as to why I am such a huge fan of the game, due in large part of the video game. I had the Madden video game when I was, 6 or 7. I've been playing Madden ever since, and like I said, I'm 25 years old. Something that simple as the game made it so much fun for my generation. And one of the things that I really forgot about that was talked about in the episode of A Football Life tonight was the All Madden team. You'd have, John Madden would literally list off the guys that were his All Madden team, guys that he believed were the best players in the league, the guys that he would want on his team, so to speak. And that kind of pioneered fantasy football, because it turned into, well, if John Madden wants this guy. Let's just say he wants J.J. Watt as his defensive end, and he wants Luke Kuechly as his middle linebacker, and he wants Charles Woodson as his corner, his safety. He wants Peyton Manning as his quarterback. He wants Adrian Peterson as his running back. There was just, it was like, oh, well, if this guy's got an all-Madden team, what's my all-team? What's my all-Thomas Take team? And what's, so-and-so. So it's really cool how Madden impacted the game, how John Madden impacted the game with Madden video games, with his broadcasting career, and as a aspiring broadcaster, as a guy that has called games, as a guy that will continue to call games, and as a guy that hosts this radio show, his dynamic duo of John Madden and Pat Summerall. I remember playing Madden and thinking to myself, wow, these guys are just, this is gold. They really fed off of each other. Pat Summerall was the guy that could keep things very short and sweet. He cut right to the chase, cut right to the point, where John Madden was this exuberant, bombastic, loud, shall I say, personality that was just, that although he was loud, although he had his way of saying things and doing things, he just was his own person. He continued to be himself. And that's something that I really admire, is that John Madden, throughout his entire career, he continued to be himself. He never was fake. He never deviated from his personality. If anything, he embraced his personality. And I think that's what made people embrace him. That was something that made people say, hey, this guy is a true, just Mount Rushmore figure of football, right? I mean, really think about it for a second. You have a guy that just continued to contribute on all levels of the game, from generation to generation to generation. And a negative takeaway from the episode is the fact that it took John Madden practically 20-some years to get into Canton, Ohio as a Pro Football Hall of Famer. He was on the first ballot the first year he was eligible, and he wasn't on it for another 20-some years. That's a real shame. And that right there in a nutshell is why I have said time and time again, with many other circumstances, that the National Football League's Pro Football Hall of Fame, the voting process, is a complete fraud, a complete joke. And it definitely needs to be reviewed, because you have these guys that are writers, and I'm not trying to stab myself in the back, but let's just say if I was a Pro Football Hall of Fame writer, a pro football writer that had a vote for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, how could John Madden not be on my list the first year he is eligible? The fastest coach to 100 wins, a Super Bowl winning head coach, a coach that went to multiple Super Bowls, a coach that coached Hall of Famers, that went into the Hall of Fame before John Madden did. So how are you going to put the players in that he coached in before him? That just doesn't make much sense. So, there's definitely a lot of reasons why, sometimes there's log jams at certain positions and things like that, but that was my biggest takeaway. The fact that I remember when Madden was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, when John Madden got inducted, I think it was 2006, 2007, and I thought to myself, what? This guy is not in the Hall of Fame? How is that even possible? How is John Madden, the Hall of Fame, the most famous, successful person probably in the history of football? I mean, if you outside of any player, it's got to be John Madden. There's nobody more famous, more notorious than John Madden. Outside of some of the players that have played in the league. There's the Broadway Joes. There's Jerry Rice. There's Lawrence Taylor. There's John Madden is in that matriarch name list. Joe Montana, Brett Favre, just these big name players that gave so much of their lives, gave so much of their career of their prime to the NFL, played longer in the NFL, coached longer in the NFL, contributed to the NFL just as long as anybody. And it's really tough for me in the back of my mind to think, wow, John Madden didn't make the Football Hall of Fame for quite some time. But in going to Canton, Canton and Apron, and seeing all the busts, seeing all the memorabilia and stuff from over the last 5 decades, 6 decades in the history of football, dating back actually to the early 1900s, they had stuff at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You take a right down one of the modern wings where it had Pro Bowl jerseys. Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott's jersey was there. You could check that on my Facebook page. I took a picture with it. The two, stellar rookie duo, the most successful rookie duo in any NFL season. And you see Madden. You see Madden in like this giant poster board, and you see all the Madden games, and you're able to play it, and it's like, wow, he's literally in the Hall of Fame more than once. Pretty cool. If you haven't checked out A Football Life, if you haven't watched it on NFL Network, that is a show that you need to watch. It's just that simple. If you're a big football fan, you learn so much about the game, about the big names of football, and you really, it's somewhat of a page out of the 30 for 30 book, because there's been some episodes like Lyle Alzado of last season where you learn about some unfortunate stories. There's not always sunshine at the end of the rainbow. The ending isn't always a happy one. But to say the least, when it's over, you're like, wow, that you really learn a lot, you really take a lot in, and it's highly, highly enjoyable. I suggest anyone that claims to be a big football fan, I suggest that they watch it, take it in, enjoy the show. It's very similar to 30 for 30, but it is just literally a football life where you learn about big-time, impactful names in the sport of football. So, also wanted to hop on here and let you guys know on the Thomas Take Sports podcast tonight that I will be recording the 4-part mini-series of the Thomas Take Sports podcast, The State of the Shield, with everything that's been going on in the sport of football in the National Football League. I feel I need to clear the air, put out a 4-part mini-series of the Thomas Take, The State of the Shield, and go from one end of the spectrum to the next. Tune in. Don't miss it. You will enjoy it. It will be live Sunday night. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take. A Football Life, John Madden. Tune in next week as I recap A Football Life, Wes Welker. Very excited for that one. Take care.